Hello, welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. We're back with the League of Ireland show. It's just me and Paul here today. Paul, we're probably going to start with the President's Cup last week. Start from the beginning. Shares pick up where they left off from last season with silverware. What do you think of the match?
I didn't see too much of the match. I think I was over in the Netherlands, so I didn't see. I saw the highlights and stuff. I know you were at it, and I was surprised that the scoreline. I was surprised Shells dominated so much. They seem to be a lot more, say, attacking or direct this year, whereas before we know they were quite kind of rigid and they would try to get goals more so on the counter attack. And Drogheda traditionally are very hard to break down, so. I was surprised the scoreline, but when you see the players that Shells have brought in, it didn't surprise me too much in the end.
Yeah, you mentioned the players they brought in. Meepo Odebeko, one of them, got in the score sheet. Looked very dangerous as a duo with Sean Boyd up front. Sean Boyd also getting on the score sheet. That would be quite worrying for other teams in the league because they look seriously strong up front. Uh, don't know if it was from that match, but I know we'll get on to the League of Ireland. Really cut up the pitch and kind of didn't help Shells with playing football wise. But I don't know if that's kind of the emphasis is on that. Really, I think it's all about the result and kind of getting on the score. She did help with Luke Dennison getting sent off. I mean, they were kind of dead and buried at that stage already, though.
I was going to ask you, was there some sort of needle between him and Sean Boyd? Because I saw him waving him off.
Yeah, it seemed like I wasn't sure. Didn't really like that when he was waving him off because I know Luke Dennison a little bit. He seems like a nice fella, but I don't know. Maybe on the pitch maybe on the pitch he's a different person.
Yeah, just hired it out because it's kind of going in and
Yeah,
out when you were
yeah.
talking a little bit. Yeah. No, yeah, I don't know him, but I know you were good mates with him. Well, I say good mates, but you know what I mean.
American buddies.
Yeah, be like me and Sean Boyd being mates. You know, we talk to each other the odd time.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, from that, I think Drogheda were always going to struggle with 11 men, never mind 10. So, but like I still I always have to say I have a soft spot for Drogheda. I always like to see him do well. I like Kevin Doherty, their manager. One of my good mates is from up there, so I used to go to a few games and watch them up there with him. So I kind of always want to see them do well. So like 4-0 for Shells, yes, it was good, but I didn't think it flattered them. It probably felt as though they could have scored more.
Yeah, and maybe I think we need to kind of tame expectations when it comes to Drogheda a little bit. Like they did lose a couple of players over the off season, and I know they did finish the season last year on a huge high, winning the relegation playoff, but more importantly, winning the FAI Cup. Huge surprise, massive underdogs in that. Great for them as a club, but probably is after like kind of ramping up their expectations for this season. I think they will struggle again this year. I think Kevin Doherty is a great manager, so I would back them to kind of stay up, but I'm not sure. We'll see. Time will tell on that one. Moving on to a game that you were at. You were over in Norway last week watching Shamrock Rovers against Molde. The big story of the week, rightly so, was Michael Noonan, 16 years old, getting on the score sheet and getting the winner for Rovers over in Norway.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like the views were insanely like it was a beautiful place, very small place though. Like there's not a whole lot to do. Like when you go down by the seaside there, and pitch side you would say as well because it's right by the pitch as well, but or the stadium. It's lovely, scenic, beautiful views and stuff like that, but you would get bored of it quick. In terms of the game and the build up and stuff like that, I mean from the Molde side, it wasn't like the talk of the town or anything like that.
Stadium seemed quite empty.
Yeah, it was like COVID a little bit. Yeah, there was like a little corner for the Rovers fans, and then like the stadium. Some said it was because they don't really like the manager. I don't know. But anyway, the game itself, I mean. Rovers, the first 20 minutes was kind of, they were backed up and kind of absorbing a lot of pressure. And then Noonan and the counter attack, I think people forget that was also a key point in the game. And he was the one who did that. I think Dylan Watts, I'm pretty sure it was Dylan Watts, played a great ball. And Noonan got his body the right side of, well, the wrong side of the defender, if you want to say it that way, but the right side for him. And he got taken down, last man, red card. And it was then you're thinking, Rovers have a chance here or a better chance than what they did, and then they kind of just got control of the game and stuff like that, and they just kind of really gonna hold the things. And then in the second half he got the goal and in front of the Rovers end and became a hero. Like whatever he does now, like he'll still be a hero because he scored that goal. He's the youngest goal scorer in European competition. I'm glad that I was there to see it because it's something that maybe in the future years, I'll look back and go, I was actually there for that, to see that, to witness that. He reminds me very much, when Wayne Rooney broke on the scene. Michael Noonan reminds me a lot of that. And I know people say, oh, you can't compare him to Wayne Rooney. 16, young, hungry, looks like a man already, scores goals, steps up. I think he's going to have a big future in the game. And look, it was a huge result. Rovers probably could have got a couple more. And, they're obviously playing this week. You would have wanted them maybe to get another goal. But look, I think it's great for Irish football. I love going over to these games. I love even being in and around the fans before kick-off and all, after the game. It was brilliant. And all the Rovers fans that travelled were all brilliant. And it was just a really good occasion, a really good week, capped off a really brilliant week. And then we got back in then obviously this week, and it was back to Friday night under the lights. And I was actually walking past Tolka on my way home. So I had to get the 16 back and walk home. I had to go pick up my dog. So I bumped into people along Tolka there. I bumped into Richie Tell. He was going into work at the game. There just seemed to be a great buzz around the game. I bumped into a guy with his son on the bus, little baby boy. He's only about 4, and he has a Shells hat on. He was buzzing to see the game. So that type of stuff, it's brilliant to see. It's brilliant to see the buzz back around the league. Or I would say back, because I remember it when I was young, but like there was a lull for a while. But there's a real buzz around the league. And obviously you were there on Friday, so talk to me about that and the power outage.
Yeah, well, like you say, it was an interesting match for a number of reasons, really. You're right to say that there's a great atmosphere around Talca, serious buzz for the match. There would be, obviously, Shells coming off a title winning year. Derry, very new look Derry team under new management, quite a lot of new faces there. It would have been interesting to see how that was going to work out, because although it is, in my opinion, going to be a transitional year for Derry, there is quite a lot of expectations from Derry fans, because they've brought in these experienced players. They're not young fellas who are, waiting to see if they'll bed in or not. They've brought in experienced pros, and so there is quite a big expectations on Derry this season. Shells, we know there is obviously going to be, having won the league last year, and after bringing in the quality that they have done. And, it was a crazy opening 15 minutes, really. It was on the 11th minute that we have the first goal, which comes from Sean Boyd, who catches Brian
great
Maher.
goal, yeah.
Yeah, catches Brian Maher off his line, and very disappointing goal for Derry to give up from a defensive point of view, because it wasn't like Shells kind of broke them down or anything, or it was just one piece of quality from Sean Boyd to catch Brian Maher. Then after that is when the craziness starts, because 3 minutes later Michael Duffy gets Derry back on terms, and then instantly after that Evan Caffrey puts Shells back in the lead, and it was quite literally the next phase of play after Derry had just scored. The Derry fans still had the flares lit, and Evan Caffrey goes up in a beautiful finish with his left foot into the far corner. And so we have 3 goals in the space of 4 minutes.
Just on that before you continue, I was actually in the car listening on the radio, and I got out to get my dog to come back. And by the time I got him and got everything back into the car and I got back, it was 1-0 when I got out of the car. And when I came back, I think it was 2-1. So
yeah, so
wild.
I'd say from a Derry point of view, seriously disappointing, having actually got yourself back in contention, just to cough up another one straight away. So then afterwards, I think Shells were quite in control, to be fair. As I mentioned before, the President's Cup, I don't know if that played a role. I know the women's team are playing on the pitch as well, but pitch was, very cut up. It was a bit of a mud bath. But I thought in particular 2 performers who stood out was Kerr McEnroy and Mark Coyle in the midfield. They seemed to really control things. The 2 bald maestros in the middle. And so just before the stroke at half time, Shells get what, in my opinion, was a fairly dodgy penalty. Seemed to be very soft.
You say that as a Bohs fan, but check one.
I was a neutral
I'm only
today.
joking.
I'm not a big, I'm not a bleeding Derry fan or anything, but it did look quite soft. I know Tiernan Lynch was kind of complaining about it after the game. However, it's given, and Sean Boyd steps up and gets his brace for the day, picks up off a goal that he scored in the President's Cup, and seems to be just as good as he was last season. So Shells go into the break 3-1 up, and then even more madness starts, because just as the players are leaving the pitch, the lights go off, fuse is blown in Talca Park, and we're wondering what's the story here. Blackout for the whole half time, and then we're thinking, Jesus, is this going to go ahead? It ends up being almost an hour that the lights are out. I overheard someone saying that there was a fan there who works for ESB or something who got in touch with one of his colleagues and
He
sorted
fixed it,
things
yeah.
out. I was sure that it was going to be called off, and apparently that the officials and the two teams had been told that it was going to be called off. Uh, but however, they get the lights back on. We get a second half. Damien Duff, I was at the press conference afterwards, he was saying that it was kind of extra sweet to get that victory because I think he was implying that the Derry team were trying to get it called off at half time.
Because it would have to be rescheduled as 0-0
Yeah.
and start all over again. So yeah, he was saying that.
I think it's 80 minutes that you have to play for it to be, considered a full match.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But you can understand where he's coming from at the same time. But you could understand why Derry maybe were being a bit coy on that to try and
Yeah.
get themselves back into to play again. But like you can see it from both sides.
Damien Duff said as much. He said if he was in Derry's position, he would have been over at the fuse box making sure it wasn't fixed. So, if you look at it from that perspective, it's I think Derry are more in their rights after an hour to kind of look for that. Having said that, from a Shell's point of view, delighted to, get off to a great start and a win on what on paper should have been a pretty difficult game to start the season.
I think a lot of people before the game were saying that Shelbourne were going to hammer Derry, which I was kind of thinking based off last season, I don't think so. But I wouldn't say they hammered them, but like 3-1's a pretty emphatic scoreline considering they were the top two last season, You mentioned Sean Boyd and just kind of the form he's in. I think Duffer said it when you go and you get highlights in your hair, you have to back it up, and I think he has so far. So look, he's flying. He's had obviously struggles with injuries and stuff like that, but to see him kind of perform, and you'd say he's arguably the best striker in the league right now, based on form.
Definitely up there anyway, and that partnership with Mipo Odebeko looks to be a good one.
Just on him, because Duffer referenced him in his post-match press conference, and he said, like, I love him. He's just so, we won, but he's still so angry. I watched the game, the second half, and you could see Sean Boyd just visibly frustrated with him because he's trying to score all the time and he could easily pass. Boyd probably would have had a hat-trick if he'd have passed him on a couple of different times, and you can see him going mad at him. But I just wonder, will that change over the course of the season? Will he get his head up and will he pass the ball, or is he just that determined to score all the time? I think in element it can be a good trait and a bad trait at the same time.
Yeah, it's life of a striker, and I'd say he was quite frustrated after the game, but probably more frustrated was Pat Hooban and Liam Boyce, who was Derry's new partnership in front. That didn't quite work out the same way. Anyway, moving on to what I would say is the main event of the week. Sunday, Bohs versus Rovers in the Aviva Stadium. Breaks a record for League of Ireland attendance. 33,000 breaks a record from the 1940s. I wanted to get your perspective on it as a neutral. You were at the game. Just give me your thoughts on the game, but also the occasion itself, everything surrounding the game, the discussion.
In terms, when you say the discussion, in terms of what should it have been played there or should it not, or what?
Well, that was a lot of the talk leading into it, but also just the kind of occasion, the atmosphere, the day of the match.
I thought it was great. I don't look. I think the league needs to be shown to as many people as possible on the biggest way possible, and that's what was done. There's people I've seen online complaining because they just love complaining. They don't actually have a valid. They're like, oh well, it's just a league game. It's fair enough, but look at the attendance that it got. Look at the amount of eyeballs it had on it. Look at the great traction that it got after the game, during the game, when the goals were scored. Virgin's coverage of it, everyone else, there was so much more media coverage. There seems to be just generally a lot more media coverage in general this season. So everything is I would call it in the green. Everything's positive. Everything's got the green arrow going upwards. Nothing's going down. So I think it's good. I just think people will find a reason to be negative about anything. So if sometimes you're just best off just ignoring and going your own way, and that's what the two clubs did. In terms of the game, I thought there was a real kind of feisty atmosphere to it, as usual, what you normally get. There was tackles flying in, there was yellow cards. It had a little bit of a feel of a Glasgow derby, Old Firm, I think. The only thing that disappointed me was the way the kind of fans were in on both ends. I couldn't see underneath me, but I'd say on the TV it didn't look that well because there was big gaps up above on the Bohs end, more so because obviously it's just the low end at the Rovers. So if you could have, at the Rovers end, sorry, I think if you could have filled that, it would have looked a lot better. That's the only negative I would say there. It's just from a visual perspective, you know. But yeah, look, the flares, the atmosphere, the singing, the chanting, it's just everything, even the fight amongst the managers. Yeah, I was right in the middle, like of it, being in the press box. I could see both sides. Look, it was a great occasion. And then when Ross Tierney got the goal, I'm sure you were buzzing because you were in the Bohs end.
I was, yeah. And as you mentioned, Bohs come out 1-0 victors. And I thought they were quite good value for it, to be honest. Wasn't sure really what to expect coming into the game because, you know, Bohs have signed some serious quality in the off season, but
Wasn't even their signings. James Talbot was absolutely sensational.
and I wanted to come on to that because there's a couple of players that I wanted to highlight, James Talbot being one of them. Took the year out last year, cited his mental health that he wanted to recover from, which is obviously a seriously brave thing to do and a positive which he should be praised for. However, last season, Kasper Taraska comes in and is arguably Ball's best player. So coming into this game, I was quite surprised to see him in the starting 11, but I mean, he was absolutely flawless. He didn't put a foot wrong and actually kept Bohs in the game for lots of the second half. And yeah, I thought he was really excellent, which was great to see. Another player who came back was Rob Cornwall, almost a year after tearing his ACL in the first game of the season last year against Sligo. He comes in and plays against Michael Noonan, who rightly was a lot of the discussion over the last week, given his performance in Molde, kept him very quiet. I thought handled him very well. For a player who's coming back from such a serious injury, I thought he was excellent playing alongside Lee Kavanagh, who I also had question marks after last season, but he played absolutely excellent. I thought the back line was superb. And I think a lot of the attention in terms of signings for Bohs came from Connor Parsons and Lys Mousset, which rightly I thought they played very well. But
They played their part in the first goal.
yeah, and they're brilliant, as you say, brilliant piece of quality.
You could see, just with Mousset, you could see he's not sharp, but you could see little bits. Like there was one time when he cut inside Pico with a little kind of clip of the heels, and Pico just got a last minute thing. But you can see if he gets fit, he's going to be a serious force.
Yeah, serious bursts of quality there, and I think as the season goes on, hopefully he gets fitter and fitter. But I wanted to highlight Niall Moran, who was maybe less talked about than those two signings, but I thought he was excellent on the day, playing alongside Dawson Devoy with Ross Tierney just in front. I thought going forward, going back, I thought in the second half especially, they would just put their foot on it and take the sting out of the game, take away any kind of momentum that Rovers were building. And I thought the bigger point really is that I thought that was where the game was won and lost in the midfield, how much better Bohs' midfield was than Rovers. And I thought that really looked like a really good partnership, him and Dawson Devoy in the middle with Ross Tierney. But the quality off the bench as well, Adam McDonnell, Keith Buckley, James Clark didn't even get on. And I'm not sure, you know, there was a couple of injuries for Rovers in the first half.
I was going to say.
Gary O'Neill and Dan O'Mandrew came off.
Matthews came off as well, but I think it was just he had a gash on his shin.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be okay. So the other two that Rovers would be worried about because of the European game.
But I thought they didn't perform well in the first half when they were on, and Dylan Watts included. I just didn't think they were at their game, and maybe that's, you know, fatigue from Thursday night.
Possibly.
Maybe it's because they haven't had a proper break over the off season, which are valid excuses. But I thought they were inferior to Bohs on the day. I don't know what you thought about seeing that from a bird's eye view.
I think there was elements, like as you say, like I don't think that you can say Bohs totally dominated the game if James Talbot was so good. Do you know what I mean? I thought Ed McGinty was very good in the first half as well. So I actually thought the game was quite even. Just Bohs were more, I would say, they kind of saw the game out a bit more professionally than Rovers in terms of they just saw the game out. They got in front. They never looked like they were really going to concede. But then if you think of that chance that Victor, I'm not going to say his second name, you might be able to say it, but I can't right now. And Michael Noonan, that missed where like it hits off McAniff. That's 1-1. That's a different game. Rovers might go on then to dominate, but the fact is that they missed that and their luck was in on the day. And look, that's derbies for you. Like, look at Everton and Liverpool the other week, where you know Everton were arguably the better side. Go 2-1 down, get a goal in the last minute. It's just one of those things. Form goes out the window, and it's all about momentum. And at times it can be luck as well. You can hit a post, it can hit your player, you can miss. Bohs, they got the win, and they won't care, you know, how it went. And it's a good victory for them, and it's a good start to the season for them.
The difference I thought this time is there's been times in Dublin derbies against Rovers, especially where Bohs will go up and then maybe ride their luck for the second half and really just be camped in their own box, defending balls And it was like that for maybe stoppage time. But I thought for a lot of the second half, Bohs actually did get their foot in it and controlled a lot of the game. I know Rovers did have a lot of chances, and I wanted to point out one of the positives for Rovers, which was Graham Burke. I thought he kind of carried a lot of their attacking threat. Victor Ozian-Vuna and Michael Noonan, the two 16-year-olds who are on. And I would be concerned about that for Rovers going forward, their sort of depth going, up top. Because Michael Noonan is a great player. He is only 16. And if you're asking him to kind of, carry a lot of the goal output for Rovers this season, you do have Aaron Green on the bench. He is 35 now, probably not the player he once was. I don't know if you have replenished that squad after losing Johnny Kenny and Neil Ferrugia, who were a lot of your attacking threat last season. Darragh Burns also. So I would be concerned about that going forward, especially with Rovers if they're going to be playing cup games, European games. I'm not sure if they're going to address that with the money that they get from Europe, which you would have to.
I think they'll be putting all they can into Thursday and then worrying about anything else after that. I know the league is the bread and butter and they always want to focus on, but if they go out of Europe this week, then, where does that leave them?
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose we'll move on then to another match in Richmond. This was St. Pat's versus Drogheda, ended in a 0-0 draw. And look, it is a disappointing start for Pats. I'm not going to read too much into it because it's only the first week, but what you would say on paper is quite a favourable, fixture to start the season with. Drogheda at home, who finished 9th last year. I know coming off the cup win, but fairly disappointing against Shells in the President's Cup. You'd think Pats, with the very, ambitious off-season that they've had, lots of hype after how they finished last year, you would have thought that they would have handled this game.
Yeah, especially with the teams that they played. They played the Whitecaps in Vancouver, in Marbella, and they also played a Molde as well. So they would have had like a tough stern pre-season, but I think sometimes that's the way sometimes it can go. Like if you pre-season you think, oh, it was a good pre-season, then you come in. Look, it's not the worst result in the world. They didn't score. They drew 0-0. That's what you could say, but they didn't get beaten. Good result for Drogheda. I saw Kevin Doherty's post-match interview where he was a bit annoyed. I think they should have had a penalty. And he also was saying like the stick that the Drogheda side get, it's as if they never played a game. That's what he said. He's as if we never played a game before. Something the way we just kind of get lambasted by people. But like, I think we said this about the President's Cup. You got to realise as well, it's like where they've been finishing, and that's why they're getting. You think Pats, the way they finished last season, they're gonna go there and they're gonna beat them. Like logically, that makes sense, but I don't know.
Yeah, and like it is very admirable the way Drogheda go about things, because they're basically picked off every off season by the bigger clubs. They lose their best players most seasons. This game, I thought one highlight for me was Luke Dennison. We mentioned him before, who made a
goalkeeper friends.
Yeah, but look, he made a huge blunder in the President's Cup, and this week he follows it up with a performance that gets him in the team of the week. In having facing a lot of pressure from Pats in the second half. I have it here that Pats had 16 shots and 5 on target to only 5 shots and 0 on target for Drogheda during the game.
You would expect that though. Like you would expect Pats to be the dominating side and Drogheda. So like none of that surprises me whatsoever. Look, it was just one of them games. I think Drogheda, that's the way I expect them to play against Shells last week and be, sit in, absorb, tough, rigid, hard to beat, and try and get a goal like they did in the cup final. So it just doesn't surprise me. Pats, they won't care. Like, look how often Rovers have started slow and came back and won the league. So they'll be looking at stuff like that going, yeah. Dundalk notoriously as well under Kenny, especially towards the back end of like 2017 and 18. I don't think they started the season particularly well then.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're a Pats fan, you're probably thinking we had a lot of expectations coming into this year.
But they didn't get beat, man. So I don't see it as a big deal for them.
They didn't, but I mean, a lot of Pats fans would have been expecting to win that game, I think.
Yeah, but they didn't lose it, so I doubt they'd be like that upset about
it's
it.
Not the
Shells have got a good head start because they got a good win against a good Derry side, who Derry will be looking to be back up there, at least top 4. They would be expecting to finish in. I'd imagine their fans would say top 2, but there's going to be a lot of competition there between Bohs, Pats, Rovers, Shells, all of them, and Derry. And I'm sure I'm maybe missing a couple. So Cork probably be thinking that they can finish at Waterford. All the teams are good this year. All the teams.
And I'm not reading into it too much. I don't think you can in the first week, but as you know well from last season, it's the fine margins when it comes down to the end of the season, and 2 points dropped can end up being the difference.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit early on to be getting, like, if this was in 3-4 weeks time, I would say more so, but just because it's the first game and they didn't lose, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. Onto the game down in Turner's Cross, Cork's return to the Premier Division. They get a game against Galway, a sort of West Coast derby almost. And this was a very entertaining game, actually. It started off with, Cork flew out of the blocks. I thought, speaking of kind of attacking duos, Sean Maguire and Rory Keaton looked very dangerous up front for Cork. And then probably midway through the first half, Malik Dykesdale gets the ball on the edge of the box. Beautiful turn and finish past.
I saw the highlights. It was a good goal, yeah.
Yeah, past Brendan Clark, who probably might be a little bit disappointed. Galway actually hang in there, though, and just before half-time, we get a cross into the box by Asua, and Patrick Hickey rises up in the box. Beautiful kind of leaping header into the bottom corner. Gets Galway back on terms going into the half. Not long after the second half begins, Greg Bulger, who has been around forever at a serious level.
Hit that with his left foot.
Hit with his left foot, yeah.
It was a good goal.
Yeah, buried it in from outside the box, through bodies into the far bottom corner, puts Cork back in front, and then with about 10 minutes left, Vincent Borden gets on the end of a kind of half-cleared corner from Cork and kind of floated volley into the far corner. Ends 2-2. I would say, even though Galway did have their chances, they probably rode their luck for a lot of this to get, a point out of this game, and John Caulfield said as much. He mentioned how good Cork looked in the game on the return, and I'm not too surprised about that because Cork do have a very strong team for a promoted side.
Yeah, well, you look at the front two. You would say, like, obviously Rory Keaton went to Pats, and the key was he was going to be the main man there. It just didn't work out for him. He had a lot of issues. Probably still, mourning the death of his dad. But him and Sean Maguire seem to be great mates, and obviously we know Sean Maguire going over to Preston, becoming an Ireland international. He was seen as the new hope when he moved from Cork over to Preston, and now he's back in the league and he wants to become the GOAT of Cork. But I think you can't rule Cork having a good season out with them two up front, because I know they didn't get actually on the score sheet, but they're just going to be a handful for every team, and they have quality. I think Keaton could go to England if he wanted to as well. So I think he has the quality, and I think we spoke about Sean Boyne being arguably the best striker in the league. There is some good strikers there as well. I think of even Padraig Gammon at Waterford, and Noonan, Graham Burke, Sean Boyd, Meepo. So we've seen good strikers this year. And then Galway on the other hand, I think they're going to be one of those sides who you just don't know what you're going to get, but I think they're going to be a good team this year.
Yeah, talking about Rory Keaton, it was obviously a disappointing start to the season last year after a big move to Pats, but he did go back down to Cork in the first division and did score quite a few goals. And people forget that he was, joint top scorer with Jonathan Afolabi the year before in a Cork side that got relegated.
Exactly.
You add Sean Maguire into that. Sean Maguire is as good as any striker in this league, or has the potential to be anyway.
And you've young O'Sullivan there, the 17-year-old who loves scoring bangers on his left foot as well.
Yeah.
Corey, is it? I can't remember his first name. Carl O'Sullivan.
So you never know, they could be the surprise package of the year. And for Galway, it's the two Americans that saved the day, Patrick Hickey and Vincent Borden, coming up big for Galway. So
and Caulfield going to his old stomping ground as well. So
yeah,
he'll be happy with that to get the a result there.
Look, it'll be interesting to see because they were so good last year, and at times were even challenging for the league. I don't know if anybody really believed that they could go on and do it, but they were thereabouts.
Mathematically, yeah.
Yeah, towards the end of the year. So we'll see if there's a kind of second season slump for them or if they continue their good form. On to Saturday's game, which was arguably the most entertaining game of
a really good game, yeah,
of the season. Yeah, Sligo lose at home to Waterford 3-2. And Waterford took a 2-0 lead fairly early on the first half, and two very disappointing goals for Sligo to give up, giving the ball away in the edge of the box, and then from a set piece you have Rowan McDonald and Tommy Lonergan getting on the score sheet for Waterford. I don't know, did you watch this game on TV? Or?
I watched the highlights. I saw the first goal where he scores from outside the box.
Yeah.
And the keeper, I think it needs to do better there as well, maybe.
Yeah, and that's Sam Sargent, who's only been signed from Watford. you go into the second half and Sligo, John Russell must have given them some, bollock in the dressing room, because they came out flying in the second half. They get in the score sheet with Owen Elding, who I thought looked very good throughout the game, and then not long after that, win a penalty, and you're thinking, geez, the momentum's all in Sligo's favour. However, Keane Kavanagh steps up and the penalty saved by Stephen McMullen, so that kind of kills things a little bit, because shortly after that, Waterford catch them on the counter attack, go up the other end, brilliant link up play by Pádraig Amond and Conan Noonan, and they were just clinical on the day. They scored all their chances pretty much. I think they had 5 shots and 4 on target, and they scored 3 goals. So
Can't argue with that.
Later on in the game, Jad Hakiki gets a second, which
Oh, that was a cracker.
great goal, to be fair. And I would say the positives in this game for Sligo were Owen Elding, Will Fitzgerald and Jad Hakiki, who look like 3 very promising players. But overall, I'd say very disappointing night for Sligo playing at home, because I think there were 3 very preventable goals.
Yeah, I think as well, like Damien Duff really likes Hakiki, and I don't think he wanted to sell him, but I know he went to Dundalk because he wanted to play. And you can see his quality from the goal he scored there. And even Noonan for Waterford, now he's on loan from Shamrock Rovers, which you spoke about, kind of them missing players now, and he did kind of fill in a bit last season.
Yeah.
You wonder why they kind of let him go, if they might need him now.
Yeah. Look, it'll be interesting to see, because Waterford have, signed a lot of quality. I know they lost a few as well, but with Keith Long in charge,
He's good at picking players.
and they did have a quite good season last year. I know they fell off a little bit towards the end, but for a team that was just promoted, I thought they did very well.
100%.
Yeah.
But I do think when you've got Keith Long managing, who's been around the league for a long time, then it's no real surprise.
Yeah.
You know?
So that pretty much wraps it up for this week anyway. I suppose the main point is that Dublin's red and black.
He's delighted with that.
You agree, don't you? I'm sure.
Well, not really, because Shell's pretty sure top of the
Come on.
league by goal difference. So
Shells are minnows compared to those 2 clubs.
if you say so, but they're still top of the league and they're still champions.
Fair enough. Yeah.
When was the last time you had the gold badges on the sleeves? 2009.
We actually we put out a nice jersey. I know we're always top of the league when it comes to fashion. I got the new Guinness jersey.
Okay.
An absolute
More jerseys
beauty.
and trophies, they were saying at the weekend.
Look, we'll take that for now. So we'll fake it till we make it. But
Why didn't you wear it?
as I wore it on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Did you not wash it now?
It's in the wash now.
Okay.
Probably on the line now. Anyway,
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there then, will we?
that about wraps it up. Yeah. Keep an eye out for this show every week. Hopefully, we're going to be reviewing matches and maybe previewing matches to come. Keep an eye out for Irish Abroad and Girls in the Game, and check us out on all the socials. So that about does it for today from me and Paul. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.